Meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District is now called to order. It's Monday, August 16th, 2021. It's 5:15 p.m. Joanne, would you please call the roll?
Here.
Commissioner Vogelsang.
Here.
Commissioner Wright. Here.
Thank you, Joanne. Commissioners, are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. It's time for public requests. If you step up to the podium, we welcome your participation. Hi, Rick.
Is it on? Yeah. Hi, I'm Rick Hurd, 285 Northeast Spanish Court. Hi, everybody. Here we go again, right? You have such a great opportunity to do something that's really creative and innovative and groundbreaking at Ocean Breeze. And it's killing me that you either can't or won't see it. Why don't you think that executive golf courses, alternative courses if you want, can coexist with championship golf? It does now at Boca Municipal. It does at Pinehurst. It does at PGA National, Augusta National, Pebble Beach. It did in your plans for Boca National. Many courses around the country right now are adding executive golf to their facilities. Some are deleting their championship courses. Executive golf and championship golf will coexist at the new West Palm Beach Golf Club that's now being built. And by the way, they in 1 year have gone from nothing planned to bulldozers working. You've been citing Boca Dunes as an example of an executive course. They actually had both championship and executive. They sold the championship course and built houses, and they kept the executive course. That's not necessarily the model that we want to use. I keep trying to find analogies to help you understand what's happening in the golf world. So I'll try another one here. I used the baseball one in July. Here's another one. Imagine that 50,000 big kids and 30,000 little kids are playing with their toys at a playground every year. They're separate big kid and little kid areas because the two don't mix very well. The city decides to eliminate both play areas and builds a new big kid area 5 miles away. Now, where are the little kids going to play? You could build a new little kid area, but you think the little kids will be welcome to play in the big kid area. Good luck with that. How could you possibly think that Boca Country Club will replace Boca Municipal? Yes, it does possibly replace the championship course, but no, there's no replacement and no room for executive golf. No room at all. There's no need to, quote, wait and see what happens there. The executive golfers have lost their home. There is a need for executive golf. There are 30,000 rounds per year at Boca Municipal that are being lost. These are your constituents. They are speaking to you through Mr. Galanis, through Mr. Chaffee, through Coach, through me and others. You're just not listening. You've heard the message in every meeting since January. You issued an RFI and the responses made it clear that golf was the #1 desire for Ocean Breeze. I personally spent hours of my time and gave you a 30-page detailed response with a vision of what you could do with the property. It was endorsed by dozens of constituents. My time was wasted. Our time has been wasted. Your time has been wasted. I have a presentation if you'd like to see it someday. You've done nothing, and it is pathetic. You've demonstrated a complete lack of understanding of the issues related to golf and a lack of responsiveness to your constituents. There is no consultant who will tell you what to do with that property other than listen to the people. You must find the courage to listen to us and stand up for what is right. What you need to do, I think, is simple. Agree on the key components of the new park at Ocean Breeze: golf, walking trails, gardens, bike paths, picnic areas, playgrounds, dog park, pickleball, tennis, community center, basketball courts, etc. We need to hear you say those things. You shouldn't even hire a designer until you know what you want, because how do you know which designer to pick if you don't know what you're building? Then you can hire a park designer to include those features. And you can leave a little room in your budget going forward to make some progress, however small, on these things every year. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Mr. Chaffee.
My name is Harold Chaffee. I'm the president of Keep Golf in Boca. You know, I came to the meeting last week or 2 weeks ago, and I was very impressed by the presenters. You know, they had an open hand. They could do whatever they want. They listened to the people. You gave them information. They read it. They absorbed it, and they came back with ideas. Okay, in that course, all of a sudden the meeting changed. It was more or less like you were indoctrinated, where you basically told the people that you did not want golf there. Who are you to tell them not to put golf there? You don't make the decision. We're the taxpayers. We're supposed to have an open meeting with the people. You're supposed to listen to the people. Now, we've been telling you all along, the people. It's not the people of Boca Chica that want this. It's the golfers. And you should want it also. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity for you to do this. It's not just because of the golf. Golf brings one thing, a source of income, revenue. What do you have that brings revenue in? Absolutely nothing. And even if you do bring revenue in, the city takes it. So you don't get anything. So now you want to keep on raising my taxes to basically pay for all these things and the upkeep, okay, on these items, okay? I'm sorry. On the upkeep of all these items, okay? And yet the city keeps drawing from you. So the city isn't raising their taxes. They're using you to raise the taxes. So they look like the good guys and you're the bad guys. I don't understand why you don't see it. But you do need a source of income, revenue. That's what we want to do, to do a mix of both, you know, and something that basically a constant revenue, not having a building that somebody else owns that you lease the land to, and then you hope you get 10% or 5% or 2 cents back on their profit. That's not going to make a big difference. You know, I just wish you'd see this. And if you miss this opportunity, that's not going to come around again. And the other thing, too, this is your land. Your land. You own this land. And you're being intimidated by people, right, who say you can't do it. If you think it should be done and it should be here, okay, and you should have a golf course, you should have the goal to go ahead and do it. Not that you sit up there and you say, well, you know, they're not going to let us do it. You know, I was going to buy the book, a playbook, a little train that when everything broke down and all the big engines were out, they asked a little train to pull this big train up the hill. And he says, I think I can. Yeah, he didn't hide under a rock. Everybody has to stand up at one point in their life and be men and make the decision that should be made. This is stupid. This is going for 5 years. And you still can't do it because you're intimidated by somebody. You should have a free mind of what you want to do, not be intimidated by somebody. Thank you.
Mr. Chaffee. We see you coming, Coach.
See me coming? First of all, I apologize for my apparel. Usually I try to get dressed up, but it was a long story, my wife at the airport. So I would like to start off with Rick mentioned about Pebble Beach has a par 3 course called the Hayes. I sent you all some information concerning it. And 5 couples, we went to Pebble Beach for a holiday, okay, for vacation. But besides Pebble Beach, what really stuck with me is we were playing the par 3. And behind us was this grandfather, his son and his daughter-in-law and 2 grandchildren. And the 5 of them were playing this par 3 together. And I did something that's very unusual for me. I broke out of my shell, okay? And I went back there and I just talked with the grandpa because we're about the same age. And he was having just so much fun playing with his grandkids. And it was just a beautiful thing to see. And that's something that you'll never see at a 18-hole golf course, okay? You know, if you look at the golfing world, you know, you have a bell curve. I'm an economics major, so we use those bell curves. The 18-hole golf course is great, but it only takes care of the top of the bell curve. On both sides, you have young people. And you know as well as I do, you put young people out on a golf course, on an 18-hole golf course, you're going to have the starters hearing from the members that these kids are slowing me down. Or you put beginners out there and you're going to hear these, why are they out here on a golf course? You know, and even my wife, when she tries, she never plays on the big course. It's too intimidating for her. She'll go to a par 3, she'll go to exec with me, but she doesn't want to hear a big course. And so there's a lot of, you know, we talk about beach and park, and we're talking about families. And these types of things is what's going to bring the help with these families are concerned. And you know, we've been doing this since 2016, and I was 100% against these kind of courses because in 2016, the demographics clearly showed that they were a waste of money. Today, the demographics have changed. And so obviously, when the numbers change, they change. I sent you a picture of this short course facility off the coast by Palo Alto, 20 acres, 20 acres. You got like 210 acres there, 20 acres. And they fit in all of this stuff, short game, practice range, par 3 course. I mean, everything, okay? I mean, you double that and you still got plenty of room. I think that's the thing I'm trying, and I think we're all trying to emphasize it maybe in a different way, but what I see with the par 3s and the executive courses is a chance for the young and the seniors and the families and to appreciate the game of golf. You know, the 18-holers, they're always going to find a place to play. They're always going to find a place to play. But the young and the old and people who just can't hit it that far for whatever reason, a handicap, this gives them an opportunity to participate in a game that I love and that many people in this room love. And that's where I'm coming from. You know, as far as producing revenue and all that, yes, it's going to do that. And if you do it right, I don't mean sending some hacks out there. I mean, making it, running it like a business. That thing done right should pay for that whole facility, the whole facility, including your pickleball and everything else. So we talk about beach and park, we talk about family. This is a facility, I think, that can help families enjoy that quality time that you're never going to see on an 18-hole golf course, because the people playing that course are going to moan and groan. And if you've ever been on a golf course, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so that's how I see this. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
Wow, 3 minutes.
Hey, you couldn't have been better. Who else would like to speak? Jack?
Jack McWalter, 1100 Northeast 2nd Terrace. I think this is the second time I've come before you in 5 years. I usually like to do my talking, making videos and social media and things like that. And I just can't do better than these two gentlemen. I mean, what can I say? There's a demand for golf. But I'll tell you a story. I've been here 40 years. I almost got in a fight with Emil Dansu in his bar a long time ago. And because I was part of the IBM group, there were 10,000 people that showed up here. In 1 year period, we needed parks. We needed, you know, we needed soccer fields. We needed this, we needed that. He left a legacy. I don't remember any mayor since then that did as well as Emil Dansu with his emphasis on parks. I'm just wondering what legacy you folks are going to have. You hit on demographics. We have 1,000 new families, maybe 2,000 new families are moving into this area. My block alone, there's about 50 new kids. The 6 schools in Boca are over capacity. Tremendous. So we got new demographics, and these are kids that are moving into the area. Where are they going to learn how to play golf? A 9-hole executive course, and Rick told me 40 acres. That's all that's needed, 40 acres out of 220. You could put a trailer there to handle the transactions. It'd be very, very low cost. And your legacy would be you're teaching golf to thousands of new kids in this city. Thank you. You're an outstanding group, by the way. I was really proud of watching you during the 18 months during the pandemic and things like that. And Breanne, you did some outstanding social media work. That was great, the piece that you did. Thank you very much, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Jack. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Welcome.
My name is Leonardo. We're new residents of Boca Chica, and we just moved into the area. That's our daughter that just went out there. We don't really know anything about this Ocean Breeze thing. If it's possible, if you could tell us maybe some background information during the meeting. If not, maybe we can get it some other way. And I see a lot of people. I heard the one guy talk about the demographic shift. I've heard about that too. I read about. I'm not a golfer, but I did read about the demographic shift, and I'd like to say that we, because of our daughter, and then we know that a lot of people have been moving into our building. Lots of them have kids right around my daughter's age. She's 9, and which has actually been great for us because she's been able to make a lot of friends very quickly. So I can tell you that there are definitely a lot of children moving into that area right now. I don't know if that impacts whatever you're doing, but it's good to see you're developing that, and so we appreciate that. Thank you.
Leonardo, if you stop by, I'll give you my cell number, and you and I can have a long talk about what has been going on, and we'd love to fill you in and have you informed. And what's your daughter's name?
Zoe.
Zoe, welcome. Oh, what is your last name, Leonardo?
Demedia, but we all have different last names.
Oh, it's okay. We just need yours.
Demedia.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else here who would like to speak? We have 2 callers who are calling in on Zoom who have their hands raised. Melissa, would you like to get that started, please?
Mr. Galanis, if you'd like to give your full name and your address, you'll have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Can you guys hear me okay? Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me okay?
A little louder, please.
Okay. Greg Galanis, 1780 Southwest Parkside Circle South, Boca Raton, Florida. As you guys know, I am president of the Boca Golf Association, representing the 3 leagues and over 200 players that have been in the boat with you guys for over 3 years. I'm going to try to not be angry. It's really difficult after spending all this time and effort. But the decision that you guys have to make right now, there really is only 2 dimensions to what to do with the Boca Chica property. Number 1 is, what do we need for recreation? And number 2 is, what is the best economic use of this $25 million of taxpayer money? Losing the executive 9 at Boca Muni and the 30,000 rounds a year, we have lost capacity. I had the good fortune to meet up with the new director of golf at Boca Muni last week, a fine gentleman who's going to do a really good job. He understands that there is no overlap from the golf course up the street, the 18 championship holes, to the executive course. So I'd appreciate it if we don't hear that come up again from people who don't know anything about golf. Rick Hurd, Joel Bowie, Angelo Sands, and the National Golf Foundation have more than validated the expected revenue return of a quality 9-hole executive golf facility. Again, we are losing 30,000 rounds a year, and there are many dollars to be gained by executing an executive golf course well. The 200 golfers and the many Boca Chica residents believe that the commissioners no longer care about doing what's best for the community. They believe that either you are deathly afraid of the city or you lack the intestinal fortitude to proceed with a project of this scale. They also believe that you wasted $25 million of taxpayer money. To be perfectly honest, many of our golfers have given up hope entirely that one of the three of you commissioners might change your mind and consider using a quarter to a third of the property to build a quality facility. I am asking each of you who care to meet with the city council representatives individually, hear their concerns, and do your job. This is going to take courage, guts, and intestinal fortitude. We elected you guys to represent the recreation interests, and we expect you guys to make tough decisions, and we'll stand behind you throughout execution of this. Thank you for your time.
Greg. Melissa,
Yes.
do you have another one?
Caller Boca Chica, condo number 7. If you want to give your full name and address, you'll have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, this is Regina Eklund, Boca Chica Condo 7, 5201 Northwest 2nd Avenue. First, I'd like to thank Brianne and Melissa very much for the cleanup that's been going on the Ocean Breeze property and the corner at 2nd Avenue and Yamato. I appreciate that greatly, as do all of our communities. After asking for ideas and input on your Ocean Breeze RFI, months later in many discussions, there is blatant disregard for the input you received and for golf in particular. I will ask why. Why, when you've received continued overwhelming requests, plans, and support for a golf facility, do you refuse to recognize this? The results to your own RFI, which was initiated by Commissioner Ernst, put golf at the top of the list. And that number did not even include the additional 225 signatures I gave you, plus more than 150 signatures collected by Deborah Miller, a board president of one of the Boca Chica condos. These are people who want you to recognize there is a very real need for an executive golf course and golf learning practice facility. Over 375 people, plus the 124 who responded to your RFI, who want to be counted and want their voices heard. What do we need to do to convince you? Why is there such opposition by certain commissioners? While I realize the importance of the Beach and Park District and City Council working together, I want to remind you, you do not work for City Council. You are a separate entity, and you need to be very cognizant of that. You do not serve to do their bidding or take direction from them or work a deal. Some commissioners' attitudes and opinions raise questions and concerns in this regard. Do not undermine the integrity of the Beach and Park District. What is your vision? What is your agenda? Who are you listening to? Who is influencing your opinion? I do not play pickleball. Imagine if I were elected to the Beach and Park District. Would I be justified in opposing pickleball facilities? That seems a bit narrow-minded and self-serving. Those of us who provided responses to your RFI with some detailed and well-considered multi-use plans did not limit our scope to only golf and nothing else. We recognize that because of the city's deal for Boca Country Club, an 18-hole course will not be built at Ocean Breeze. We have all told you an executive course, golf practice, and learning facility would complement, not compete with the city's new municipal course. Have you read the proposals from Rick Hurd, Harold Chaffee, Greg Galanis, myself, and others? We've looked at the entire 212 acres at the Ocean Breeze property and given you some good, creative, feasible ideas that will provide the community with golf as one component of many possibilities. I'd also like to speak very briefly to Angelo's stands and the fact that many of us who play golf and play on the executive course probably won't be playing the new Boca Municipal course. Well, I can tell you, I, for one, will play the new Boca Municipal course. I'm not a great player. I probably will slow people down. I will bring my lady friends there to play as well. And I don't care if I slow play down, because we're not getting an executive golf course in your mind. So I do hope you will acknowledge us, listen to us. We will not give up. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. Is there anyone else, Melissa? Does anyone else would anyone else like to speak? Okay, public requests are now closed. It's time for the approval of the regular meeting held on August 2nd, 2021, found on page 1 of your agenda packet. Do I hear a motion?
Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Thank you, Mr. Engel. Is there any discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Joanne. Our first item of regular business is the Ocean Breeze Architect Engineering RFQ ranking. Mr. Gorin, would you like to start us off with the memorandum that Brianne prepared that's found on page 7 of the agenda packet, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening and welcome to Monday evening. In the backup is a memorandum which Brianne did prepare, but it tracks very clearly what is known as the Consultants Competitive Negotiations Act, which is called the CCNA, the statute which is founded in Chapter 287.055, which was created as far back as 1973. I happened to look at the legislative history. It goes back a lot of years, and it's been in place for quite some time. The consequence of which is that that's the basis and the legal premise on which you'll make a decision this evening to rank and to engage in conversation those that made presentations at the last meeting. You have 4 proposers that were legally qualified to present to this board. You gave them the time and effort to present themselves to all of you. And at the moment, the statute now guarantees that there'll be the following process in place because the law requires it. You need to rank the folks this evening. You have to rank the top 3 firms at a minimum. You can rank top 4 because you've got 4 firms to rank. And there are essentially several different components by statute that you must require that you consider. First of which is the ability of professional personnel. Number 2, and these are all in the memorandum, but I want to put it on the record, whether the firm is a certified minority business enterprise. Number 3, past performance of the firm. Next number is willingness to meet the district's time and budget requirements. Next number is location of the proposer. Next number, recent, current, and projected workloads of the firm. And last but not least, the volume of work previously awarded to each firm by the district. The memo goes on to state that pursuant to the CCNA, which is the state statute I just referred you to, the Board of Commissioners must rank and determine in order of preference no fewer than 3 firms by statute deemed to be the most highly qualified to perform the required services. The way that you can do this is not an uncommon practice among public bodies, is that the chair can address each of you individually. You can, on the record, propose your preferences in the context of the ranking 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can do this also through a written process, but the typical process is to have you speak your piece. As you know, in certain locations in South Florida with ethics codes and ethics rules, there are limitations on public bodies to even rank them. And rank in this particular consequence. But in this situation, you're not limited by state law. You're not limited by Palm Beach County's laws or the city's laws. You're limited only by the statute to make these decisions. So those are the component parts of the statute. The statute does contemplate that once you rank the firms, you must approve the ranking among all of yourselves. There has to be at least a majority to rank the top firms 1, 2, 3, and 4. The consequence of which would then authorize the director and your general counsel to negotiate a contract. Barring a contract being executable with the top ranked firm, you'd have to go to the next ranked firm and thereafter. So presentations are in the record. The record evidence of each speaker's presentation is now part of your public record. You've seen the proposals, you've seen the backup, you've seen all the information that's required to do so. The time this evening under the statute under Chapter 287 tonight is to essentially consider each of the applicant's presentations and those component parts which I described. They're in, for the record, in 287.055 subsection 4 under the terms of what's called competitive selection. And those are the things that you need to consider as a component part of your decision making this evening. And you have the discretion, you have the ability as public officials, as elected officials, to interpret those conditions, and there are essentially 8 of them. My numbers are correct. There are 7, excuse me, at which you'll be able to make your decision. I'll be happy to answer questions, but that's the general process. The chair would control the premise upon which you make your process implementable this evening.
Mr. Ernst, do you have a question for Mr. Gorin? Oh, well, does anyone have a question for Mr. Gorin before we get started? Okay, Commissioner Wright, would you like to start off?
Come up. Okay, so my number 1 choice was Miller Lake. My number 2 choice was Kimley Horn. My number 3 choice was Calvin Giordano. And my number 4 choice was Jack Nicklaus. Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Engel?
All right, let me get my notes here. Okay. My first choice was also Miller Lake. My second choice was Calvin Giordano. Third choice, Kimley Horn. Fourth choice, Nicklaus Design.
Ernst.
First choice, Miller Lake. Second choice, Kimley Horn. Third choice, Calvin Giordano and Associates. And fourth choice, Nicklaus Design.
Thank you. Commissioner Rollins.
Before I give you mine, I just wanted to say that I thought all 4 were very qualified individuals to do the job. And I had a tough time sorting it out myself. But in the order of selection, I have number 1 is Miller Lake. Number 2 is Jack Nicklaus Design. Number 3, Kimberly Horn. And number 4, Calvin Giordano.
You, Mr. Rollins. I agree with Commissioner Rollins. Everybody was impressive. I would enjoy working with any of these firms, but my first one was Miller Lake. My second was Nicklaus. My third was Kimley Horn, and my fourth was Calvin Giordano. Brianne, would you like to?
Okay, so Miller Lake was everybody was ranked number 1, so that's no problem there. The next, Calvin Giordano was ranked 4, 3, 2, 3. So the next highest one would be Kimley Horn, and then Calvin Giordano, and then Nicklaus.
Mr. Gorin, I need a motion, don't I?
You will. For the record, you've now properly, legally, and appropriately under the statute have given your preferences in the context of the ranking as required by the statute. It would be appropriate, Madam Chair and Commissioners, if you would, realizing that it's Miller Lake, Kimley Horn, Calvin Giordano, and Nicklaus, that you take a motion on the floor to approve the ranking and accept and direct negotiation with Miller Lake by your executive director and by your general counsel.
If I could just real quick, I just want to do some math real quick to make sure I have these other 3 correct. So Kimley Horn is number 2, but actually CGA and Nicklaus are tied with their ranking. So number one ranked was Miller Lake. Number two is Kimley Horn. CGA and Nicholas are actually tied for 3.
We only have to rank the first,
Technically
top
by
three.
top 3.
Top
So the
three.
third is a tie.
And if you would choose, ties are broken in many different ways, but you get to decide how you break them. You know, in elections, when you have a tie in an election, you actually draw straws. That's in the statute. I'm not making it up. There's in today's marketplace, when there's a tie in an election, the canvassing board can draw straws to get to the answer. So you can independently on this dais this evening decide how you split the baby and make a decision. It's just a general term as to how you would re-rank.
She's retaliating just to make sure.
It's a tie.
She's good with numbers.
Yes. I get a tie also, by the way, in my notes.
Okay.
Absolutely. You can start it off.
They were all very qualified. I have to say I was very pleased with the results, and that you know, it was close, but there was a little bit of a runaway with Miller Lake. Just from going through each of the presentations, I wish everyone could have seen the presentations because then they would know where we came from. But for me, Nicholas Design, primarily golf, but it was really WGI. And I wish WGI would have taken the presentation as opposed to Nicholas Design. I thought the WGI guy was the person answering a lot of the questions, and that was appropriate, but it was Nicholas Design who made the proposal. I ranked Calvin Giordano ahead of Nicholas Design just because they've done prior work with the district, and of the 7 characteristics we've done there, it just seemed to me that CGA was just a little bit ahead of Nicholas Design, but they were all very close. But to me, I have great expectations from the number 1 choice, and I hope that we can work out an agreement.
Ernst, Commissioner Wright, do you have anything? Okay.
The third choice, the tie. I mean,
Discussion first, and then we'll.
Yeah, I mean, I was CGA didn't bring in any golf expertise at all, and they didn't have any golf expertise. And despite what the golfers might think, I am in favor of a golf component at Ocean Breeze. I don't know where anybody has gotten. I don't know if anybody has gotten that I didn't want a golf component. If we all are for that, then we're all for that. I've never eliminated it as a component for Ocean Breeze, to be clear. And then Nicholas, I felt, was much more focused on development oriented stuff versus any open space or wetlands or anything like that. And they didn't differentiate us from the city, which I thought was an important component to put in there as well. So I preferred CGA, but I'm super excited about working with Miller Lake on this project. So,
Commissioner Wright, Commissioner Engel.
I thought also that all 4 candidates put forward excellent presentations. My concern with Nicholas was a combination of what Commissioner Ernst and Commissioner Wright spoke about. One, that WGI was really the driving force, and 2, that they focused on a lot of commercial development and not a lot of natural development. And also, I'd like to add that I'm not opposed to golf at Ocean Breeze. I have almost up till recently voted in favor of it. I'm just tired of knocking my head against the wall with the city. All right. They've told me publicly and privately that they're opposed to golf. So the opposition isn't here. The opposition is at the city. So do what you guys do, what you do here, do it at the city. Meet with them on a personal basis. Go to every city council meeting, talk at every city council meeting, send them letters like you do with us. All right. You guys have made a great impression upon us. I appreciate your devotion to the cause, your your persistence, and the answers that you've come, the arguments that you've made. But the problem isn't here. The problem is with the city. And no matter what we do, no matter how you want to go about it, the city has to approve whatever we do, whether it's on our property or their property. And they are opposed to golf at Ocean Breeze. It's as simple as that. Okay. I just thought I'd throw that in there. But my preference between Giordano and Nicholas is for Giordano. Despite the fact that they really didn't have a golf component and they really didn't have to know how to go about it. I thought that what they put forward was a little bit more appropriate for our needs.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Mr. Rollins?
By my number 2 person, Jack Nicholas design, I like like Craig said, I wish WGI had taken the front and center, but I do like the fact that I'm in favor of golf. I think Jack Nicholas design could have put in a very qualified course that we could approve. And I still would have supported him as a number 2 position. Period.
My only reservation with CGA, I'll be very honest, I was a little taken aback. It's nothing to do with your qualifications of doing this particular job, but when you made a comment about the grants that might have been available for Patch Reef Fields, and it didn't, because we already had the budget established, it wasn't discussed with us. I was disappointed. It's nothing personal. It's just, I was disappointed in that because we are not made of money and it's taxpayer dollars that are funding all of these projects. So that was, I still stand by my decision, my initial decision with Nicholas being ahead of CGA. So I guess we have to take a vote.
Now I have basically a 3-2 vote on CGA being ranked number 3rd. If that's the way you see it too, Sam?
Confirm it, yes.
Do we have to do anything else, Mr. Corwin?
You need a motion to confirm so that you have a dichotomy between 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Mr. Rollins, your hand's on the button.
I make a motion then that we move Calvin Giordano in the 3rd position by the in the selection of the architects for Ocean Breeze.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call?
Yes.
No.
So the ranking for the
Thank you,
recommended
Joanne.
chair is as set forth by the motion. You've got your 1, 2, 3, and 4 legally, so you're legally
Okay.
complete.
You have your marching orders too.
Voted up. That was just for number 3 there. We need a vote for 1 and 2.
Just to confirm to ratify the ranking for 1 and 2. That's correct.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion? Thank you, Craig.
Second.
Any discussion? Now, is this just for Miller Lake or is it for 1 and 2?
It's
We need 1 and 2,
1
so it
and
would be
2.
Miller Lake
You're-
is number
you're
1. And
ratifying your vote count. That's correct.
Okay. Joanne, would you do a roll call, please? Yes. All righty. Now you have your marching orders. You two have got to meet. Yes, Craig.
Make a motion towards some of the components that should be included in the next step that the executive director will go for. And so I think it's important that we at least discuss them and give those as part of the direction so that we can expedite this process for the community.
Yes, ma'am.
Corin, is that appropriate at this time before we have an agreement with Miller Lake?
Well, if I may respond to the general concern, the answer is that you've legally ranked, you've reviewed, you've ranked, you have now a direction to your staff to negotiate a contract. You can certainly indicate your preferences in the context of that negotiation, but the role and the responsibility of negotiating is up to your director and your attorneys. It's not inappropriate to raise the bar on preferences, but it would not be totally consistent with the statute to direct specifically what you negotiate for. It is not legally inappropriate to suggest your preferences.
Well, I mean, preferences is really, from my perspective, it's a contract that needs to be developed. And I think giving some direction on the contract is important in this case.
And I believe you can in the context of preferences.
Okay.
We're saying the same thing, just using
Yep.
different words.
Okay.
You're not directing staff to do anything except to listen to your preferences.
Would you clearly state your motion, please?
I'd like the executive director to proceed with procuring with the highest quality services at the best cost, as we've identified previously, but to seek ideas that include financial sustainability for use. I'd like to also ensure that the Miller Lake, or the winning bidder, does an additional community meetings. And I'm asking for at least 2 in-person community meetings and a statistical survey of the city district residents of what they would like. And then I'd also ask that they identify critical infrastructure parts of the property, whether it's vehicle parking at different access points. I think it's essential that we identify where those are if the property is in different components. And I also want them to include diligently looking for seeking grants and community partnerships. You know, those were selling points to me that I thought was very good. And finally, I think there should be a space reserved for the nonprofit. And I say one other component that should be finally is not opposed to a golf component. I think a golf component is a part of it, but every time we get into this golf component discussion, it sounds like an executive course in a driving range, and I'm not sure. So I want the community to tell us what they want. And it's not just the Boca Chica community or the golfers, it's the entire community, because land is very valuable. So that's it.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Is there any discussion? Yes, Mr. Engel.
One of the things I'd like to see as a part of the discussion is a rough budget. One of the things that we did when we initially negotiated with architects with Price Fazio et al. Was we didn't establish a budget. And I think we need to establish with them what we're looking for and how much money we have to spend, or how much money we envision spending. And also bear in mind that we're talking about the entire 212 acres. So the city's going to want some kind of participation in this. And that has to be borne in mind as well. If it was just the east side, it would be a different story, but city owns the west side, and that's the reality. And we need to include them in one way or another in this project.
Is there any other discussion? Mr. Rollins?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure where to go with the motion. I was afraid we were going to outline what we wanted as far as components in there. And there's a lot of things that have been discussed and referred to, and you covered some of those in your motion, Craig. I have sat here and from the very beginning have supported golf at this facility of some sort. And I'm disappointed with where we are, folks. With that, I've not been concerned about the city, because in our agreement with them, they said that golf would not, a decision on developing the course would not be unreasonably denied. Quite frankly, I'm of the opinion that we've been unreasonably denied through this whole process. And I'm really disappointed with the narrow-mindedness of folks that are suggesting downtown that we would be in competition. I've held from the very beginning what Rick Hurd said, that we would not be. I want to see golf in that facility and to support those people who put in a lot of time and effort. And they're not all people who live in Boca Chica. It's a community project, not just a Boca Chica project. I think there's plenty of room in there. It's going to be a phased in project, Steve. So any prices that we put in there probably are going to be phased in over time once we decide what those components are. I know that the city has would like to know, in my meeting with one of the city council, what space will be remaining that they can have input on, because we're yet to do a recreational master plan. And I think that that's a 10-year project. And I know there's some other, in looking at some of the proposals we had, there were recreational master plans that have been designed by some of the architects. And I do know that it takes time to develop the funds to build out these projects. It's not going to be a $26 million project and we're going to put that on the table. This is going to be a year-by-year project. But I think the important component that we have to start with is to support those people who have put in 30,000 rounds over at Boca Muni on the short course that they have. Angelo said it exactly right. We want kids to learn how to play golf, and they're not going to do it on an 18-hole championship golf course. They're going to be intimidated. And I hope that if we can't get this done, that Miss Eklund will take her group out there and poke along and force the issue, because I do think that we need that. I'm glad to hear Erin speak up that you know, she supported a golfing facility, and we haven't decided what kind of golfing facility is going to be there. Whether it's going to be an alternative golf course, par 3, it's got to be something different than Red Reef, because that's a pitch and putt course over there. We need a learning center. We need a driving range to make this course successful, and we need a revenue and income producing component. So like I said at our last meeting, Steve, never, ever quit trying to get this done. And I think that I do believe that I hope some of the city council were listening into Mr. Hurd's presentation and what he said about the need for this. Greg Galenas had some good points, and these people have been really supportive of our efforts in this regard. And I think I certainly don't want to disappoint their efforts. And I think we have the intestinal fortitude to get this thing done. And I do think that if we approach this correctly with the city council, I think that they will accommodate our request, if that's what the public wants. And I'm not suggesting that the public is going to come up with anything other than what was in those censuses, those RFIs that we got. I think it was pretty clear to me where the main interest was. And I do think that it could sustain itself through revenue. And that's what we need very much so in a new, and sorry to be on the bandwagon, but I really took at heart what these folks are saying. And I feel the same way they do about, you know, the delay that's, and when you look back and say it's been 5 years, has it really been 5 years? I want to get this thing started before I'm off this commission, and I'm running out of time. That's all I have to say, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay.
Erin, you had your hand up first. Thank you.
Yeah, just a little bit more on the golf. I think this whole project from the very beginning has been difficult with how the financials had to go and who owned what and all that kind of stuff. But I think when the city was gifted that 18-hole golf course, I think it was our duty to kind of reevaluate. We couldn't just develop the land without redoing the master plan and looking at the property as a whole. Again, we couldn't just throw a 9-hole course and a driving range on there without looking at the project as a whole. So we really had to reevaluate, and that's why we're going to hire Miller Lake to do that. And I don't think anybody was ever against golf in any way. I think, though, that with the 18-hole course there, we really had to look at, we have to look at what we really need at this property and what the rest of the community wants as well, and what's really going to be used. And I think Miller Lake is going to help us with that. I do think walking trails and biking trails is like my #1 thing, though, to really get done on that course. I do think looking on that property, I do think understanding what the city is going to be doing with the 18-hole course and how they're going to change things over there is also important in what we're going to do with whatever golf facility we develop at Ocean Breeze. So that's kind of why we don't want to just rush in and build an executive course straight away in a driving range. We really need to kind of seam it all together, if you know what I mean. So I totally understand your frustration, but it's really frustrating to me personally when we get almost abusive emails from people saying that we don't care what's happening there and we have done a bad job, because this has been a really, really, really complicated project. And it was my first big project coming on here. From the very beginning, this has been an awful project for me. So for you guys to say that we have done a bad job and we don't care what goes there and we've done nothing is really, it's hurtful, because we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be elected officials getting paid nothing if we didn't care what was at that facility and what was being built there. So, but I appreciate the honesty, but to be hurtful and be abusive to us is not okay. So that's kind of, and I do agree with Steve that I've talked to city council members and they haven't heard a peep from golf. They do not have it on their radar because they don't hear from you. They don't hear from anybody. So if you want us working together on this, you really have to go to city council, not just call them on the phone. Go to the public meetings and get it on record that you're there and you're making a statement in front of them, not just us. Because they're the ones who took away your executive course. They're the ones who sold your 18-hole course. And I get they're doing it for the good of the city, but they're the ones who sold it, not us. It's not our responsibility to replace it. Yes, it's our responsibility to provide beach and recreation. And this is part of that. And we're trying to step up and do that as best we can. But you really need to make your voices heard to city council as well. So that's
Mr.
what I've just
Engel?
been wanting to say for quite some time.
Craig had his hand, Steve had his hand up first, Craig.
I just want to make a point here. Whether the city has reasonably or unreasonably withheld approval, the fact of the matter is they have been the ones that have withheld approval. And based on what I'm hearing from members of city council, if we're talking about not necessarily a golf component, but anything they think threatens the viability of the new municipal course, they will oppose it. Okay, so the only way to get a golf component, whether it be an executive course, whatever it is to convince city council that this is the best direction to go in. If you listen to all of us, we've all said, you know, golf at least should be considered. Nobody here has dismissed golf out of hand. Okay, but you come at us like we shot your mothers. All right. I mean, we just got yelled at. We just got lectured. All right. And for what? Okay. We've gone in front of city council. We've had conversations with members of city council. All of us. All right. But the reality is they have said, the members of city council have said that they do not want golf at Boca Chica. All right. And you've heard from all of us. Nobody here has said, absolutely not, no golf at Boca Chica. All right. So it's not us that you have to browbeat. It's the members of city council. Okay. And maybe then we'll get their approval. And whether it's reasonably withheld or unreasonably withheld isn't the issue. Okay. It's been withheld. That's the issue.
Craig?
On my my motion, and I want to be clear, and I made a mistake in bringing up golf component. I want to give the executive director with the motion the ability to work with Miller Lake based on some characteristics, and I've identified 8 of them, 7 of them I mentioned. None of them was telling them what the components are, and so I would like to leave the components, the feelings, discussion out. So the 8 components that I do, and I picked up one from Steve here, is the highest quality service at best cost, something that is seeking financially sustainable use or alternatives with it, a statistical community-based survey, you know, and then a community meetings 2 to 3. Okay, identify vehicle parking and access points is critical. Seeking grant or community partnerships, would that be? That's number 6. Number 7, seek an area for nonprofits, reserving something for the nonprofit component. That could be the school district. The school district has definitely have needs from the swim center. There's other opportunities out there. And finally, it would be with city and district staff and elected participation. I think they need to have the feedback from both parties. From there, we can go into the components. Let them come back with some of the components and deliverables of what could happen out there. And I think the community will be pleased with that components. It's not gonna please everyone. It may or may not be something, but this is the group that gave us Gumbo Limbo. I'm looking for the next Gumbo Limbo, a destination point that is good for the whole community. And I think it would be a tragedy to have a full golf course. We've all said that, but it's getting into components, and I don't want us to get into components. Let's park that, let it go out there, get more feedback from, and one thing I learned from all of these architects is we did the right thing. We got an initial indication what people wanted. We heard you, okay? But we're not gonna go run with it and say, here it is, we already did this. So we gotta have something that is balanced for the whole community. And I'm looking to a good contract that includes these 8 components, and that's it.
So you have amended your motion. We'll need a second.
I just added the city elected and district elected.
That constitutes amended.
Yes.
Okay. We need a second. Mr. Rollins seconds.
No.
Oh, you know.
I have a question. What do you mean by your add-on number 8?
I didn't have the participation from us or staff. I would like Miller Lake to reach out to each of us as well as the city elected and their staff if they get directed that way. Get feedback from others.
Is our project.
Better with sugar and honey than it is with vinegar and oil. So I think you want to have something that meets all of the community needs. And as I've mentioned and I've sent back notes to Greg, I understand that. My message is the city has not even taken ownership of the golf course yet. So I don't know what their plans are, what their design is. We know it was a championship golf course. I don't know if it's going to continue to do that. We haven't found out the outcome of the pickleball center or any of that. There's some action items that need to happen. The purpose of this architect thing was to say, okay, we're moving and putting things in motion for our next city meeting to say, we can make something out of this. What are the different opportunities? And then there are going to be trade-offs.
For you to clarify that, Greg, and with your last sentence, maybe you did for our next meeting with the city. I think that the person with the city that we should have involved with this probably would be the recreation director, because he's more in tune with the recreational needs of the community rather than the entire city council. That was the only issue I had with that discussion. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's leave it up. Can we say leave it optional? Okay. All right. And okay, I'm good. You're good. And this will be a second. Okay.
Is your hand up, Aaron?
No.
Oh, okay. Did we have a second with that, Mr. Rollins? Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please? Yes.
Yes.
And thank you, everybody.
Madam Chair, just to clarify, this motion having been adopted by the board, will be direction to your director as well as your lawyer to work with those component parts along with the folks from Miller Lake and try to incorporate within the document of those component parts which you have moved on this evening, among other requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Gorin.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Nice to see you, Mike. See a lot of you, I'm sure. Okay, our second item is the budget discussion with district CIP projects found on page 8. And Brianne, would you lead us off on that, please?
Commissioners, on page 8 is a list of just district projects. These are the district CIP projects that we would manage. So they will not be part of the city's budget, which I'd like to put on the agenda for our next meeting to talk about the city operation and CIP. But tonight we just want to talk about our projects, things we need to budget for outside of those city requests. The list is the Sugar Sand Park roof repair replacement. We have a Patch Reef Park walkway resurfacing, the swim and racket center tennis court resurfacing, the swim and racket. We want to add some additional lighting here for nighttime play. And then Patch Reef Park, there's 3 components to that. The total is 2.8. And that includes, guys, if we could just while we're finish this conversation here. The Patch Reef Park is the tennis court resurfacing. It's a rebuild of the tennis courts. We resurfaced them a few years ago, and all this is detailed on the next page. It also includes restroom renovations and also adding 12 pickleball courts. And just to clarify, that does not take away any tennis courts. It would be expanding the footprint of the tennis center to include 12 more pickleball courts, and that should satisfy the bulk of the need for pickleball. Our pickleball courts that we added this year, we take a look at the numbers from March to June. We had on 6 pickleball courts, we had 938 participants. And on our 15 tennis courts during that same time period, we had 992 participants. So the pickleball courts are definitely getting used. And I think adding more would satisfy the need out there and take care of that. And then our other projects listed, it's a carryover of the Ocean Strand project, as well as we allocated $5 million for Boca Chica. So the total there is 9.3 on our district CIP. And then on page 9, Melissa wrote up some explanations of each item. A lot of these things are just renovations and safety, other than the expansion of pickleball, the Ocean Strand, and Boca Chica.
Thank you,
I'm
Brianne.
looking for direction tonight, I guess, to either allocate the funds for these, not allocate the funds, and we'll come back at the next meeting with a budget that will include whatever you decide tonight, and then we'll discuss the city stuff to kind of finalize that budget.
Mr. Rollins, you had your hand up.
Yeah, very well outlined the need for pickleball courts. I think that component was one of the components of phase 2 at De Hornley. But I think the combining this and keeping the racket sports in one space, I think will satisfy the pickleball players because it will be lighted, which I think is contributing to the amount of play that we're getting over there. And I've just asked Melissa, that 2.8 million, is that pretty firmly developed, or could I offer an extension to that to just round it off to 3 million so that we don't have any change orders?
Yeah, that's actually an estimate. I'm waiting for some more information. Fast Dry Courts had given me an estimate. Then they know we have no commitment to move forward with them, but they're working on a more detailed, more precise estimate for us. So for our purposes, So these were numbers that it was 1.1 plus design for the tennis courts when we were going to get those resurfaced. And then it's about 40,000 per court to build the new pickleball courts when you include the fencing that'll have to be included and the lights, et cetera. So yeah, Bob, I think that could be a very good thing that we could solidify just to hold firm and make sure that we have to get it the way it needs to be and to confirm that the work can all be done.
Well, with that being said, Madam Chairman and Brianne, I would like to see this put in our budget at $3 million when we get the final layout of that next week. And then we'll be talking about the city CIP in their part to the budget as well. Yes. And what I want to know, and I've mentioned this at the last meeting, what was the big increase in the O&M, the parks operation and maintenance from 2021 budgeted 16,830 and projected would finish up here at 15. We've gone to 18. I'd like to have an answer to that question, is why the budget from the city's 18 million. That's a considerable increase over the last year.
Okay, we'll lay out each park and kind of go through it. A lot of that is payroll, and I don't know if all the positions didn't get filled. You know, we allocate funds for positions that don't necessarily get filled. So I'll break down each park and show where the increases are. Yeah, well, I know staffing is pretty critical. And I know the city's short of staff because I've heard them mention it more than one time. And I've seen advertisements where they have on their website saying, you know, part-time positions available. So I'm not looking to reduce any staff, but if there's positions that go unfilled year after year, that's an area that I want to focus on. Okay. Okay, and I'm actually good with the rest of it. Melissa did a nice job outlining the reasons for the CIP project. So if we go forward with the additional 200,000, the total would be 9.5. Just to clarify for everybody.
So you had your hand up.
Yeah, Madam Chair, a couple thoughts on it is that, you know, first of all, I think it's well put together. There's rough numbers, but my fear is, you know, rough numbers become the bogey for what vendors come in and bid for. So, and that kind of happened with the fields that we did at Patch Reef. So I'd rather have the budget. We keep our rough numbers; these are estimates. But when we go through the capital planning, we kind of reserve it for the park, and so we know what we're going to spend for the total of the park. And we have some flexibility as we get into these things and we understand maybe we don't want the community center at Patch Reef and we need to do something different. We also have to have a question resolved of where is pickleball with the city, because they were going to reach out to the National Pickleball Foundation if they were doing something with the city or not. I think that is a question we need to resolve. I do conceptually agree with racket being at racket court, but I want to at least have that answer addressed. And so my thought is, you know, let's just kind of group our projects by park and have that as a number. You know, these are the main things and what we think they're going to do, but we need to eventually go out to bid for these things and we'll get more feedback for them. I'm not sure we should be putting these hard numbers down and that becomes reality.
Thank you. Aaron?
You can budget either by park and have a total number for the park, or you can budget by project. And each project will have to come back and it'll cause us to redo our approved budget if you come out wrong on them. And then it's very evident this is what you're spending for each, you know, project that you pick on. And I don't think we have a strong enough basis to say the tennis courts and everything is going to be 2.3 or 2.5 million.
Mr. Rollins.
Craig, I've been doing this for 23 years. And I haven't felt that we have been taken advantage of by outlining our projects and without having a path to run on. Any road will take you there. And what you're proposing is you're saying for Patch Reef, you're going to have a budget amount of
the total amount of
$3 million.
And then of that you'll have subcomponents of it. You can decide where, but each one of those projects has to come back and say, where are they falling within that overall budget? And so the reason I'm saying that is so that you can properly go out and get more information on each of them rather than have a number. And if you don't feel taken advantage of, that's great. I do feel that, you know, the CGA proposal, without looking at grants, without looking at things, just took our number and ran with it. That's what I got out of that architectural response from it. So I think it's time to change some of that bidding because you're concerned about spending money. This is a great opportunity to manage costs and to manage them with the vendors a lot more carefully. We are in a tight budget, and I'd rather have it at a group level than in an individual project and then having to constantly look at a new thing. And these are not, you know, solid. We need to go through each of them and when they're going to happen, how they're going to happen. They need to take time on them.
Well, I disagree with you on that component. I mean, when we did Darnley, the phase one, we had a budget given to us by the city estimated at 24 million. By the time we got the bids in, the final bid was 9.9 million. So I don't think that it was reasonable to say that because our budget was that amount that they're going to come back and bid that amount.
Can you explain the Sugar Sand Playground then?
Well, yeah, I can. I sure can. That should have been torn down from the very beginning rather than trying to rehab it. And I think we would have saved some money had we done that. Because once we got into it, we kept finding things that we were trying to salvage, and we were trying to keep a good part of that historically because of the volunteer work that was done. So I don't think that's a good example of that. There were cost overruns on that because there were a lot of change orders that had to be done to get that project done. So, but historically, I haven't had a problem and haven't felt like that we've been taken advantage of unnecessarily in the competitive bidding process. And so I would not support your motion.
Brianne has her hand up.
I think just to clarify what Commissioner Ernst is asking for is on the budget, we have a Schedule B, we list all our projects. You're saying you'd like to see Patch Reef Park renovations, $3 million. And then we come to you and say, we're going to bid out the pickleball courts or whatever it is. We come to you with our bids and then we create a we have the sub projects there. Now we're saying, we're going to take whatever 1 million of that 3 million and put it here or whatever it is. Is that what you're kind of saying? Like, so that you could see the projects as they're bid and see where they're coming out of that general fund for that park, or not general. Don't let me say, I don't mean general fund as though it's a separate, you know what I mean? Yeah. Okay. So that's how you're looking for it to be laid out on Schedule B, because we can change the layout to look like that on Schedule B so that you could see that each park has a number. And then as we get the projects bid, we'll put those sub projects there. Does that make sense?
So we'll still be able to see those numbers, the estimates that you're projecting.
See those projects, yeah, and we'll see where they're at, and then we'll shift it from that 3 million. If that works with everybody, we could do it that way.
Mr. Rollins, does that?
A cost estimate of for our budget purposes. I mean, when vendors come in, they win the job based on most qualified. So they're not going to. They're not going to charge an extra $200,000. They're not going to get the job if they're not the lowest qualified bidder. So they have to make it competitive with other companies that are coming in and bidding the same job. So they're not going to gouge us because they're not going to win the job. So it doesn't make sense for them to do that.
You pointed out before you negotiate the price. That's what you just said.
So what?
Negotiate that. Right. You're getting to this, you can count to 100 a lot of different ways. So we're all saying the same thing. What I'm saying is we need extra diligence this year. And so we do that. Another way to do that is to look at my park carefully and make sure that you're not going above and beyond that.
I submit to you, we've done that over the years. I don't see the reason to do this. And the fear I'd have is that these things get lost in the process because they're not enumerated with the cost in it. And I don't know that we've ever had a contractor come in and said, let me see your budget on this, because in a competitive bidding situation, you know, they're bidding against someone else and they all want to get the business. And I don't see the reason to change what we've been doing all these years, because I don't see the value that's being added by doing that. So.
And a lot of these projects,
Pardon?
A lot of these projects that we went over before the meeting, I went over with Brianne, a lot of them are safety issues that I'm hearing about from the community. People are tripping on the tennis courts because these courts need to be resurfaced. The lighting is something that as we go forward, you know, with more people wanting to play sports after work, hey, I think it's not only a safety issue, but I think it's a really good thing for the community. The restroom renovations at Patch Reef, they're not ADA accessible. So we need to do that for the ADA, for the people who need, you know, accommodation.
To our facilities manager, Melissa, did you just pull these figures out of the air, or did you do some pre-qualification on those?
Well, it depends on which ones you're asking me about.
No,
There was
no.
qualifications on all of them. Like I mentioned with the restroom quote, what I got is historically what we've worked with the city on renovations has been approximately $200,000 per restroom. So 200,000 for men's, 200,000 for when we've done them. So what I did was these being indoor and being at the facility center and having been quite a bit longer since we've renovated them to bring them up to code, I estimated that up a little bit. And then I included additional money, 10% of the value for a design cost. For the tennis redo at Swim and Racket Center, I've reached out to experts in the field and asked them for a quote and put in writing to them that we could make absolutely no promises of work to them, that we were a state entity and we'd have to bid it, but we're interested in budget numbers. So I got multiple quote people to give me their opinion of what the budgets cost coming out and take a look at them.
So you did not use your Ouija board. Okay. All right. Well, and then the other thing too is that if we get some bids back in that we just think are just out of line, we just don't have to accept the bids, correct? So I appreciate Chris' concern because he's the money man with the district. But I do think that we have done every year. I think we do a pretty thorough job in our expenses. And now that Craig's been the treasurer, he's been giving us keeping the pencil sharp. So I just don't think that there's a need to make a change.
Well, I'm going to push back on you, Bob, on that. I'll tell you why. Is I appreciate the work of how we got there, but you accept the fact that you're going to redo the tennis center restrooms. I assume that's in the community center, $600,000. So you're also got the pickleball. You got 4 major things going on at Patch Reef. Okay, walkway resurfacing, $200,000. Tennis court rebuild, $1.3 million. Pickleball addition, $900,000. Doesn't that kind of warrant? Are you really using the Rutherford Center at all over there? To me, I know it's all part of the whole Patch Reef Park, though. So you should look at the whole picture of Patch Reef, right? They're next door to one another.
As needed, Craig, but there's nothing needed there other than maybe putting a padlock on the door and closing it up because there's no use there. So what's the point? Now
That's my point.
Well, I'm missing your point.
Well, I'm saying you've got all these things identified. You're going to march down the path of fulfilling these things, but maybe you should be focused on the community center and taking it down and putting something else there. Well, then having one budget gives you that flexibility to work on that.
Well, no, well, your budget for one budget's going to be a component of all the different items that you're talking about. That we haven't seen a need to do anything with the Rutherford Center, and I see no reason to include Patch Reef as one group to make sure that we have money if we want to do something with the Rutherford Center. You can always amend your budget if something comes up that you want to do. Madam Chairman, I'd recommend we make a motion so we can quit, Craig and I can quit arguing.
You've got the floor. You got the floor, Mr. Rollins.
I'm not going to make a motion because there's no motion to make. It'd be Craig's to make if he wanted to make that change. So.
Are we good with the 9.5?
Okay. All right. So.
Do we want to make a motion, just move to keep these projects in the budget for this year at 9.5 or?
Madam Chair, I would make a motion that we maintain the district CIP projects as presented on Schedule B. And I'm not making a change on the Patch Reef tennis and pickleball design.
Do I hear a second? Thank you. Further discussion? Mr. Engel?
I just want to make sure that when we include this in the budget, that we have the money to do all this. And that also staff is prepared where necessary and if necessary to make whatever cuts we need should the occasion arise.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Mr. Ernst?
Each project will be individually discussed before they come up, correct?
Yes, we will come back with each project after as they're bid out.
Joanne, would you do a roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst?
Yes.
Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Middleton?
Yes.
And Commissioner
Yes.
Thank you, Joanne. The third item of regular business is the audit services recommendation. And we had an excellent committee. So Brianne, would you bring that?
Sure. On page 12 of your agenda packets is the the update on where we're at with our audit committee. I want to compliment Commissioner Ernst, our treasurer. He did an outstanding job chairing this committee. I want to thank Michael Calvert and Linda Davidson for their participation too. I felt like the meetings went really well. In the end, Grau and Associates was ranked #1, Markham was ranked #2, Nowlin, Holt, and Minor was ranked #3. All firms were great. All three made wonderful presentations. So the first choice of everybody was a 2-to-1 vote, Grau and Associates. Again, I think Commissioner Ernst did a really great job just keeping everybody on task and getting through this process. It was very smooth. It was like the easiest. I thought it was daunting when we started looking at what we had to do and go through this process, but you made it all go very easily and quickly. I didn't put that in my memo because I didn't want to give Craig a big head, but he did a great job. So just looking for an approval to move forward to negotiate with Grau and Associates.
Is there a motion to approve Grau?
Madam Chair, I make the motion that we approve Grau to continue preparing the audit for the district.
Just a second, Mr. Engel. Mr.
Just to
Gorin?
clarify, the chapter and verse that you're traveling under this evening, and I thank Commissioner Ernst for his efforts and tireless efforts in this committee. This is similar to the CCNA, but different. This is 218.391, which is the statute governing the selection of auditing firms, which was complied with by this organization publicly. I state that on the record, and pursuant to section 218.391, the governing body may select a firm recommended by the audit committee, subject to negotiation of a contract, and the ranking is being embraced and ratified by your vote this evening, which would then direct the director and the general counsel to negotiate a contract with a top ranked firm under the statute. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gorin. Mr. Engel, you had your hand up to do the second. Thank you. Is there any further discussion, commissioners? Mr. Ernst.
One point is that thank you. We had a lot of help. So it's not me, it's Linda, it's Michael, it's Sam and Jake. But I did want to say that of the three firms, it was really tough. It's not like some of the previous ones that we've done, but it was a very close call. But I do want to point out that the auditor or the representative from Grau and Associates has been a long-term partner and done a phenomenal job of representing special districts. And what I learned in that is that their firm represents over 350 special districts, which is of maybe 1,500 roughly in the state. So it's a large group. Both Markham and Nolan, Holt Minor had their own qualifications that were very good. So it was not an easy selection, but kudos to Grau and Associates.
Thank you, Mr. Ernst. Any other discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote? Yes. Thank you. It is time for the approval of payroll and invoices found on page 13 of your agenda packet. Do I hear a motion, Mr. Ernst?
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of payroll and invoices. Included in there are two large city invoices for January and February of this year. The total amount is $2,237,727.80.
Here a second. Thank you, Mr. Engel. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Joanne, would you please do the roll call vote? It is time for reports and discussion items. We'll start with Executive Director Harms.
Commissioners, just an update on the pipes and pumping project. It actually hasn't started yet. They're having a delay getting some of the materials in. So when we get a start date on that, I'll give you more information. But right now they're just waiting to get some more materials in. We had another discussion on the tower. So we'll talk about that at our next meeting as well, as far as how that's going and moving forward. But they are working, the city is working on all these projects and continuing to push them on. We got some participation numbers, which I sent out to everybody. It wasn't, we got those because we were working on this facilities report that's due next year. But these numbers aren't month by month, so we're still going to work with the city. The city is working on getting some of those numbers and revamping how they're collecting some of that data to make it more accurate. I think I reviewed the pickleball numbers. I just was astounded by the numbers of 938 on 6 pickleball courts versus 992 on the 15 tennis courts. It really shows that pickleball is definitely a booming sport in Boca. So impressive. And I also want to just thank Michael Calvert. We've had a lot of things going on here, and he helped us out with the audit committee, and he's also just been helping coordinate. We had to get some permits for the Boca Chica project, and he helped coordinate that because the city owns one side, so they need to sign off on those permits, and it kind of gets a little staticky, but he helps make those things work. And he's also assisted us with some maintenance issues, just getting things expedited here. So just want to thank him for stepping in to help with those things when he has so much other things going on. And then for future agenda items, I wanted to add the donations gifts policy, which we talked about, the budget discussion next meeting on the city CIP and the operating, and we'll have some update on beach renourishment as well. And then Commissioner Rollins asked for user fees to be one of those discussion items as well. So we can add that to the next agenda. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Brianne. Mr. Gorin, would you like to take it for District Council?
Just briefly, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Just a couple of items. At the next meeting, we intend to provide to you a written memorandum with regard to the issue of the Attorney General's informal opinion issued back in June of 2020. As you may remember, the AG in their letter specifically said that while some special districts have been granted specific authority to dispose of real property by their enabling special acts, the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District is not. The authorization to sell, lease, or otherwise convey real property owned by the district is not among the enumerated powers set forth in the special act, and goes on to specifically say, unless the special act is amended to provide otherwise, the district may not sell, lease, or otherwise convey real property it owns. Well, that's what the AG has said. We're going to look into that very carefully. We will have for the chair and the commission at the next meeting some analysis that will help us and lead this organization into what other legal options, which is what the charge was from the board, within the confines and the limitations associated with the AG's informal opinion. And we believe that there are some. And we would not choose to compromise the rights of the organization, this organization, to partner with others in the context of business opportunities, which are public purpose based. And because of that, we're going to look more carefully at some of the research that we provided to the AG's office, as well as some options that we think might be viable. And we do think that there may be some viable options, which would not violate the tenor or the premise of what the AG has talked about in their informal opinion. And we'll give our best analysis of that at the next meeting. If there are questions you may have about that before we publish it, we're happy to have those discussions between now and the next regular meeting. We also want to thank you, by the way, for your thoughtfulness in listening to Jacob Horowitz's presentation at the last meeting. We worked pretty hard to give you that analysis on the ILAs. It's a sensitive and very important topic relationship-wise, and we could go on that subject, and we're happy to respond further as the situation arises, but we appreciate your reception to and your comments and questions that were offered at the last meeting. We, as your lawyers, feel very comfortable that your interest in that subject matter, which is quite sincere, was received well by you given our presentation. But on this topic regarding our opinion, we know it's been out there for a bit. We don't want to give you a short and sweet answer, which just simply replicates what the AG said. I know what the AG said, and that's okay, because that's what the limitations were. But lawyers are supposed to be creative within the theory of the law, which I think there can be. And there are other options for other organizations, special districts, and government agencies that may have similar limitations, but are given other options that may legally provide for those pathways that we'll be happy to address with you. So we look forward to it.
Thank you, Mr. Gorin.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Wright, would you like to start off with the commissioners' reports?
I'd like to ask what the status is of Ocean Strand.
Sure. We went through the second planning and zoning review. We had to go through that again after we revised based upon the archaeological report and the survey. So there was a few minor notes by staff. Carol and her team are making the corrections to the plans, and then we'll just be waiting for permit approvals to move forward on that. So we're close. Try to get a better timeline at our next meeting as far as where we're at with the permitting.
I think that's it.
Mr. Engel?
I was wondering if we could add maybe to the next meeting or subsequent meeting. I'd like to talk about doing an independent audit of our costs involved in the operation and maintenance of our parks. We're at the point where, I don't want the city to take this as, well, we want to get rid of you. I want the city to take this as, we want to work more closely with you to get a grip on our costs, especially when it comes to staffing, as Commissioner Rollins brought up earlier in the meeting. So I'd like to see that explored and some action taken on it.
Mr. Ernst?
My comments are directed more towards the golf community and what's been said earlier on. From the beginning, I went back and looked at our minutes from the last meeting. There was no one here who said they did not endorse a component of golf. But, through the exchanges that were given to us here and emails that exchanged, there is a misconception on a lot of this. And the misconception is we're going to take our time and do it right. And we'll figure out what we're going to do for the whole community. And it may or may not include a component of golf. And that is something that will be considered. But there are many other components for this community that should be taken into consideration. So the recreations group did their needs assessment. I have trust and faith in our potential consultant, Miller Legg. And I think that we don't need them to be bullied, and I don't like being bullied, and that's what I feel like has been being bullied by a select few who, I get it. You're very passionate and you understand what you want, and there's a loss of the executive course out there at Boca Muni. But again, take that up with the city. They haven't even taken over the course yet, and they haven't said what they're doing or anything, and we need to give them that opportunity. So, and I do not support 2 golf courses side by side within 3 miles. And I don't think many residents in this community would. Do I support the learning center idea and learning? Yeah, I grew up on, junior golf program. I went through high school golf. I played a lot of golf. So I'm not a non-golfer. I get it, but let it go through its right process. The gift of the Boca Country Club was truly a gift, and let us absorb that. And it has to be with some conversations with the city. And I don't want to ignore the fact that there are other needs out there for recreation, including swimming, including pickleball, many different things, and the walking trails too. We bought the golf course for the purposes of green space, and that was a key component. We also bought the golf course because there's a hotel revenue center on it. Okay, so I have no problems with earning some level of revenue on something there in the site because it was always there. And that was the thing that would make this thing financially viable. But that hotel site was knocked down by us. And then later we learned that you can't put another one up. But I don't know. I think if you work closely with the city, you're going to come up with something. I don't want to get into the components, this or that. I want to let Miller Lake do their job, come back with more community feedback, and then we'll take it back to the next level and we'll lay out a phased approach, and it will take time. So that's my thoughts.
Rollins.
Oh, Craig, we're going to have another disagreement here. You know, I thought there at the first part of the meeting, we almost, in fact, I thought we had a consensus that the city council was looking for that we haven't been able to get to on a golf facility. And I think that there's enough evidence that I've seen with the RFI that we got, with the petition that we got, the 30,000 rounds over at Boca Community. What Rick Hurd said, I mean, Rick Hurd didn't just fall off the turnip truck yesterday when it comes to golf. He knows golf. And he said clearly that we're not going to be in competition with the city. And I think they should take that idea. If that's in their mind, they should forget that idea, because this is, if you've played golf, you know how frustrating it is to have a 5-hour round of golf because you got 3 or 4 duffers ahead of you, slowing you down. And the young people are not going to play on a championship course. So some kind of golf component is what you're saying. And I concur with you on that. I think it needs to be something that will let the kids learn how to play golf, let the seniors play golf in a couple of hours rather than, I tried to play 18 holes in 95-degree weather last weekend. And I made 9 holes, and it was the better part of valor was having a beer in the clubhouse. So, but I think for those who have been supporting this, don't give up. We'll have some type of a golf component there in the project, and I hope it's going to be what everybody is looking for. Changing the subject, I think Craig brought up a really good question about what the city's doing over at phase 2. If in fact they had pickleball in there, we need to let them know that we're investigating that as a part of Patch Reef, so we don't end up with them. And I know they put Calvin DeJohner on hold, so they're not doing anything over there just yet, and may not this next 12 months. But I think that they need to know that we are, our plan is to move ahead. We don't want to have a duplication of services. So that was a good point, Craig. The other thing I'd like to find out too, Brianne, is there any type of thought being given to changing the hours of operation because of the or changing facilities being open because of the Delta variant on COVID? I mean, the kids now are going back to school with or with masks. I haven't been able to determine which one it is.
There's an opt-out thing. It's a long story.
Okay, so I think I'd just like to know where they are. I mean, we have sports seasons that are about to start up. Boca Hoops, I think, has been granted access to the public schools facilities. We have the field house at Sugar Sand. I just want to make sure that if there's a process or a plan coming down the pike, that we need to let the sports groups know early enough about that.
The only change that's been made is that employees now are being asked to wear masks again,
okay,
regardless of vaccination status, but that's it.
Yeah, right. And the final question I have is, would you let me know what's happening with the hours of the swimming pool here at Swimming Racket?
Yes, I met with city staff. We're working on transitioning some people from Patch Reef over here and then reducing or closing that facility at the community center. But we're putting a whole plan together before I actually send that out to you guys. So I should have that this week.
Okay, so when do you expect us to be able to have this one swimmer? I know that I talk to about twice a week about the hours.
Yes, I know you want it right away, but it'll probably be maybe a week or two before we get everybody moved around.
Be when?
Maybe a week or two before everybody gets moved around.
2 weeks we'll be able to.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'm going to hold you to that.
Okay, I'll do it.
I'm going to jump in here again. One of the frustrations with city council that I took away from watching some of the meetings was, I think it was Councilwoman Deputy Mayor O'Rourke saying, well, the district doesn't know what it wants and they're not all on the same page, which we don't have to be. We don't have to agree on everything. That's what we're here for, is to discuss these things. But if we could, let city council know that we're not all opposed to putting a golf component at Ocean Breeze, I think that would be helpful. You all are in contact with them. I'll be happy to, put my 2 cents worth into them, that we're not opposed to a golf component, not to be in competition, but to help generate some of the funds to put back into the property that we paid a lot of money for. So I've said my piece on that. I read something in the paper about the tennis director at the Boca Raton holding a fundraiser for Tennis for Turtles. Is that going to be something that benefits Friends? Okay, it didn't say, it just said it would benefit Gumbo Limbo. So I'm happy to hear that. So it's this coming Saturday, I believe. Mm-hmm. And the other thing, Brianne, I would love to see participation reports when you talk to Mr. Calvert.
Sent out today, but they're working on revamping some of the procedures for collecting things to be more accurate. So
love to see that. Okay, so Brianne, would you reiterate the future agenda items for us, please?
I have the donations gifts policy, which is part of my certification thing, the budget discussion for city CIP and operating. We have user fees. Commissioner Engel talked about auditing, which was something that we were probably going to include in the auditor contract. So I can talk to you about that and then give an update maybe at the next meeting. And then that's all I have here. Is that everything?
Yeah, I have one thing that I need to say here. I wrote something out because I always get so nervous talking. Still, after all this time. But I'm a mom, I'm a commissioner, I'm an elected official, and I'm a community member. And I don't know if this is the exact place to say this, but this is the only platform that I have to be able to say this out loud to the public. So if I didn't say this right now, I would feel like a failure as a mother almost. So I'll just go ahead. As a member of this community and an elected official, I feel the need to bring up the topic of masks. Being a parent of an 11 and 8-year-old, and I know we're all sick of talking about masks, believe me, who both attend Palm Beach County Public Schools, I feel completely helpless and my hands are tied. Just as I talked to Frank Barbieri and their hands are tied. But on Sunday, the director of the NIH said that the unvaccinated are sitting ducks for this virus. Those are my kids, the sitting ducks. All kids under the age of 12 are sitting ducks, and we are letting politics dictate what is happening to them. We as a community need to do everything in our power to protect these kids. If that means wearing a mask, getting vaccinated, having your kids wear masks, please do it as best you can. We are asking you to do these things to protect yourself, yes, but these things protect those sitting ducks. The elected officials of the state and local municipalities need to step up and do what is right for the health of our community, not just do what they think will get them further ahead in politics. I have found myself at a loss for words and completely dumbfounded to be where we're at this moment. It feels as though we are in a nightmare we can't seem to wake up from, and all we need to do is listen to the science and use our common sense. Please let's pull together as a community and think of others, not just ourselves. Let's teach our kids that it's not all about me, and this tiny inconvenience of wearing a mask or getting a shot is worth it to help others. Because if we can't pull together, if we can't put politics aside and come together to fight a deadly pandemic, then I hate to see what will happen with global warming. So I feel like, thanks, Angela. I feel like there's really nothing else I can do because of what's happening. And I drop my kids off every day and I'm a little nervous and I'm a little scared. And I don't feel like dropping your kids off at public school, you should be that way. And this is not the only thing that we're scared of at public schools or any school for that matter. But I just feel like the glass is half full all the time in my head. And I feel like our community and humankind can come together and do what needs to be done. You always hope, fingers crossed. But I just needed to say that to get it off my chest. So that's it.
Well said, Erin. Mr. Engel?
Where I was. Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Discussion? Roll call vote, Joanne. Yes.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned. Stay safe and take care. We'll see you in 2 weeks.